Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the sister of an abuse survivor who took his own life after an inquiry refused his plea for anonymity says someone needs to be held accountable for his death.
I'm doing everything I can to make sure my brother's not forgotten and just to basically highlight it to other people so no other families have to go through this. Because I wouldn't wish this for my worst enemy.
A cargo ship travelling from Grangemouth carrying highly toxic chemicals collides with an oil tanker in the North Sea. Also on tonight's programme, he was the only boxer to win an Olympic gold medal for Scotland. Tributes for Dick McTaggart, who's died at the age of 89.
Coming up in tonight's sport, will it be Livingston or St Johnstone who will join Hearts, Aberdeen and Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-finals?
And the new film about the footballer who suffered a career-ending accident only to embark on an epic journey to the Euros with the surgeon who helped him. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. The sister of an abuse survivor who's believed to have taken his own life after an inquiry refused to restore his anonymity says someone needs to be held accountable for his death. Kevin Sutherland went missing in December last year and his body has never been found. The Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry has commissioned an independent review into what happened. Katie Hunter has been speaking to Kevin's sister, Melanie Watson.
Like every day all we think about are they going to find him there, they're going to find him, they're going to find him. That's it, that's my day.
Kevin Sutherland went missing in December. His body has never been found. The 33-year-old abuse survivor previously agreed to waive his anonymity to give evidence to the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry, but later regretted that decision and asked for his name to be removed from online evidence. That request was refused, a decision his family believe led to his suicide.
I feel people need to actually know what's happened to him and what made him do what he done. And somebody needs held responsible for it.
Melanie has released this email from September last year from her brother to the inquiry. Kevin wrote, "In the unfortunate event of any harm befalling me due to the refusal to remove this statement, my family will likely then have grounds to take legal action. Please, I'm begging you here in writing to have this statement anonymised so I can finally just move on from all this." He ends by saying, "Please, just allow me this chance to put all this behind me, once and for all."
This was just taking over his whole life, from morning to night. This is all he went on about. Like he couldn't focus on anything else in life. He couldn't see anything good around him and enjoy life because of this. And it took him to this was the last final straw. He could not deal with it anymore.
A spokesperson for the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry said their thoughts were with the family of Kevin Sutherland. He added, in the interest of transparency, the inquiry has commissioned an independent review to consider all aspects of its interactions with him. The review is being carried out by Jason Beer KC. Mr Beer agreed the terms of reference for the independent review, and these are available on the inquiry website. The form Kevin signed said once anonymity was waived, he couldn't ask to be anonymous at a later date.
It's been really, really hard.
But his sister says he was vulnerable and didn't realise his evidence would be so easy to find on internet searches. It's understood the waiver has now been updated.
I'm doing everything I can to make sure my brother's not forgotten and just to basically highlight it to other people so no other families have to go through this. Because I wouldn't wish this for my worst enemy. Oh, God.
Melanie wants people to know the impact this has had on her family, in the hope it will lead to change. Katie Hunter, Reporting Scotland.
Dozens of people have been brought ashore after a cargo ship travelling from Grangemouth collided with an oil tanker in the North Sea. One person is in hospital and there are now environmental concerns about jet fuel spilling into the waters off the East Yorkshire coast. Well, our correspondent David Henderson has been following this story. David, it is a developing story, but what more do we know?
Well, Laura, this routine delivery trip by the vessel Solong has turned now into a major incident. Solong is a container ship which until now has been making weekly trips to Grangemouth container port, and as usual this weekend it arrived arrived here, it dropped off cargo, it picked up cargo, and then last night it set off for the Dutch port of Rotterdam. It sailed off through the Forth Estuary, down the east coast, and then from about Newcastle onwards, it appeared to go dead straight for several hours, perhaps on autopilot, until the Solong ran slap bang into that oil tanker, which was loaded, we now know, with jet fuel for the US military. And the result, as we've seen today, has been devastating. There were multiple explosions on board the tanker. It's been ablaze for hours. It's also been pouring jet fuel into the North Sea. And to make matters worse, it's emerged that Solong was carrying 15 containers of sodium cyanide. Now that's according to Lloyd's List Intelligence. This is a highly toxic chemical which can release hydrogen cyanide gas if it gets wet. It is also potentially explosive, so that could spell real danger for anyone who's getting too close to this vessel.
Yeah, some really worrying details emerging. Do we know how it happened?
Well, it's a good question. What's bizarre is how the Solong could have collided with that tanker, which was stationary and which was at anchor. This all happened in daylight, of course, at 10 o'clock this morning. Now, the Met Office say visibility along the east coast of England was poor at times. There was some cloud, there was some sea fog that could have stopped the crew of the Solong from having spotted the tanker. But vessels like this are normally equipped with radar, and a big oil tanker like this would show up on radar from many, many miles away. So some real questions for investigators tonight.
Yeah, OK, thank you very much for that update. And as we said, this is a developing story, so you can keep up to date with that over on the BBC News website and the BBC News channel. Now, detectives are investigating a large fire which destroyed several business units in Inverness after a car was driven into them and then set alight. Police say the car was deliberately driven into the premises at Fairways Business Park just before midnight on Saturday, as Chris McLennan reports.
From this image, the full extent of Saturday's devastating blaze is laid bare. Dozens of firefighters tackled a huge fire at this row of shops, but not before it wreaked havoc on several small businesses. No injuries were reported, with a joint investigation between police and the fire service now underway. Under this blue sheet is the burnt-out remains of a Skoda Octavia. It was driven into the premises behind me here before both were set alight. A man wearing a balaclava fled the scene, with police keen to trace him. Officers are also keen to trace the occupants of a white pickup truck which was also seen in the area. But for the businesses based here, Saturday's fire has had a huge impact.
Coming along this morning and seeing the building and seeing what we've built up ourselves, the hairdressers and the barbers have all built up, and there's nothing left. It's just heartbreaking. It's gone. You know, the business is gone, the whole lot's gone.
For many in the local community, the incident has come as a huge shock.
It's something that we've never ever seen in Inverness before. It's not a sort of a targeted event like that. And the implications for whoever are the perpetrators of it, it's not just for the individual or for the business that they were trying to target. It's had a devastating effect with the neighbouring businesses as well.
Locals are being asked to cast their minds back and report anything suspicious they may have seen. Police are also urging anyone with any information or footage that may assist their inquiries to get in touch. Chris McLennan, reporting Scotland in Inverness.
To some of the day's other stories now. And a plane which crashed near Fife Airport last year, resulting in the death of the pilot, lost power because of water getting into the engine, according to investigators. 50-year-old Nicholas Denison Pender from Perthshire died in the crash near Kinglassie on the 23rd of December. The preliminary report by the Air Accident Investigation Branch said there had been significant water contamination that had not been removed from the fuel system during the pre-flight inspection. Two 12-year-old boys have been arrested after a teenager was stabbed in Livingston. Emergency services were called to the scene on Lenzie Avenue at about 8 o'clock yesterday evening. Police Scotland said a 16-year-old boy had been taken to hospital. Inquiries are ongoing. And the SNP has appointed interim Chief Executive Carol Beattie to the role permanently. The former Chief Executive of Stirling Council took on the job temporarily in October following the resignation of ex-Daily Record editor Murray Foot. He held the post for about a year after his predecessor Peter Murrell quit over a row about party membership numbers. Ms Beattie will oversee the SNP's campaign for next May's Holyrood election. A true gentleman and a legend in the boxing world. That was the tribute paid by the family of Dick McTaggart as they confirmed his death at the age of 89. He was the only Scottish boxer to have won an Olympic gold medal in Melbourne in 1956. He went on to win many more amateur titles, but always resisted the lure of turning professional. Rachel Bell looks back at his life.
London Airport welcomes Britain's two gold medal Olympic boxers, flyweight Terry Spinks and lightweight Dick McTaggart.
In 1956, Dick McTaggart from Dundee became the first Scottish boxer to win Olympic gold.
And another knockdown coming up.
Born in the city's Dens Road, McTaggart was one of 18 children. He was working as a cook in the RAF when his talent for boxing led to gold in Melbourne, as well as the Val Barker Trophy for the best boxing style.
And then I found out I won it. Oh, it was fantastic. And then they told me what it was for the most stylish boxer. It should have been the most stylish runner because I was running around that ring.
It was just the start of his success. He was flag bearer at the 1960 Rome Olympics, winning bronze. And then in 1964 in Tokyo, he became the only British boxer to compete in 3 Olympic Games.
So once again it's Dick McTaggart, champion.
European and Commonwealth success came too, as well as 5 British ABA titles. Over the course of his career, he won 610 out of 634 contests. His many achievements celebrated at this boxing club in Dundee.
Dick is number one in terms of Scottish boxing, in terms of his support and his legacy for Scottish boxing.
McTaggart ended his amateur career at the age of 30, having turned down offers to go pro.
He was humble. He reached the pinnacle of amateur boxing. And that's what he was about, supporting amateur boxing and grassroots boxing. Professionalism just didn't matter to him.
In Dundee today, some shared their memories of one of the city's most famous sporting sons.
No, I come home from the Olympics. We met him at the station and walked up Victoria Road to his house. There was thousands there. Very popular. Great boxer.
Strangely enough, my stepbrother fought Dick. Aye. And Rob, well, I didn't care what happened because Rob never told me whether Dick won or he won about one of these things.
Dick McTaggart went on to coach and was made an MBE for services to amateur boxing in Scotland. He died at the age of 89, his family describing him as a true gentleman and a legend of the boxing world.
Well, Laura McKeever is presenting the news at 7 over on the BBC Scotland channel shortly. And Laura, you've been hearing more about the life of Dick McTaggart.
Yeah, I've been speaking to Norrie from the St Francis Amateur Boxing Club, and he was talking about how his legacy extended beyond Dundee and actually to amateur clubs around the country. So it was a really nice chat with him. Also tonight, Scotland's Greatest Escape is back. Fans of that can tune in to see Grado and our Judith. She's his new sidekick. So exactly, that will be interesting and not quiet. That's from 7 o'clock. Laura, BBC Scotland channel and iPlayer.
Good stuff. Thank you, Laura. Tonight's main news again. The sister of an abuse survivor who took his own life after an inquiry refused his plea for anonymity says someone needs to be held accountable for his death.
And 3 become 4 as Livingston and St Johnstone go head-to-head for a place in the Scottish Cup semi-finals.
Now, the King has kick-started the countdown to the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow next year after placing a message inside a baton at Buckingham Palace to officially launch the King's Baton Relay. Sir Chris Hoy was on hand to receive it before it starts its journey around 74 nations and territories, each of whom will have their own baton made by a Glaswegian in Govan. From London, here's our sports news correspondent Chris McLaughlin.
With 500 days to go, the King giving Glasgow 2026 the royal seal of approval. His first games as monarch following the tradition of placing a message in the King's baton, a message he'll read out at the opening ceremony next summer. There to receive it, Sir Chris Hoy, although this time there will be no round the world relay as such. Each of the 74 nations and territories get their own baton to bring back to Scotland.
What I wanted to do was actually bring them together. The easiest way of doing that initially was 2 elastic bands, one on each end.
Back to Scotland, where they were made by a Glaswegian.
I feel really privileged and honoured to be able to step up to the mark. And also, you know, this happening in Glasgow and me being Glaswegian, it kind of really hits home and makes it a bit more special.
You seem very chilled about this, but I know how many you've got left still to make.
Do you want to give me a hand?
Few will forget the helping hand needed to open the baton when the games were last in Glasgow in 2014. Much has changed, including the games themselves.
We know it's a scaled back games. How are preparations coming along?
Preparations are moving at pace with 500 days to go. There's real energy in the city as everyone's getting ready. Our venues are on top form, our suppliers and our partners are getting into gear, and we've got some great people working in the team. So I'm feeling really confident about the delivery of next year.
Now, it's nice for me to be rubbing shoulders with sporting royalty today, but you're rubbing shoulders with actual royalty today, aren't you?
Yeah, my brother's bit of advice was don't fall and headbutt the king, so let's hope that doesn't happen. But what a special day to meet the king, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Earlier in the day, Westminster Abbey had a very Commonwealth feel during a special service to mark the day. All nations represented and bringing their own colour and noise. So the countdown is officially on, baton passed, and for Glasgow and this Newlow Games, the clock is now ticking. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland, London.
Sure is. Chris will be straight up the road to help out with those batons. You better do something
Yes,
as well,
he
Sheila.
will indeed. Yes, not long to go for that, but lots of football to get through before then. Hello there. There's one place up for grabs in the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup as Livingston and St Johnstone battle it out in the last quarter-final tie. And it promises to be an intriguing contest, with Premiership strugglers visiting Championship high flyers. Jonathan Sutherland is at Amon Vale.
It's a question often asked: how big is the gap between the bottom of the Premiership and the top of the Championship? Well, tonight we find out. St Johnstone at the foot of Scotland's top flight, but it's not all doom and gloom. They've only lost 2 of their last 8 matches. As for Livingston, they're unbeaten in 11 matches as they fight for the Championship title with Falkirk and Ayr United. So it's a really tough one to call this evening. It could go all the way to extra time and penalties. Also worth mentioning, we've got the draw for the semi-finals of the men's and women's Scottish Cup this evening. So drama is guaranteed. Join us for Sports Scene at 7:30 on BBC Scotland, on the iPlayer, and it's also being live streamed on the BBC Sport website.
And you can also catch that match on Radio Scotland. Well, already in the hat for tonight's semi-final draw are Celtic, who were 2-0 winners over Hibernian in Glasgow yesterday. Aberdeen, who ended Queen's Park's cup run with a very comfortable 4-1 victory at Pittodrie on Saturday. And of course, Hearts, who kicked things off with a 3-1 win against Dundee under the Friday night lights at Tynecastle. Now to rugby, and experienced Scotland backs Adam Hastings and Kyle Steyn could make their first appearances of this year's Six Nations in the Championship's finale in Paris. They're 2 of 4 additions for the trip to France. Scotland, who survived a late scare against Wales, will aim to spoil a French party, with the hosts 1 victory from clinching the title. Gregor Townsend's side can still arithmetically win it, but they need to beat France by more than 50 points and hope for an unlikely set of results elsewhere.
Absolutely massive task, but if our backs can get the ball and we can run this big French pack around and we can keep the ball and look after it, then, yeah, listen, we go in hope that we can do something, but unfortunately a miracle would be required for us to win the championship, I think. But I think that's past. Just to go and get a victory in Paris would be amazing.
Finally to golf, and Callum Hill says he hopes the momentum gained from his Joburg Open victory can propel him towards a PGA Tour card and join fellow Scot Robert McIntyre on the US-based golf circuit. It was a second DP World Tour title for Hill, who's from Crook of Devon near Kinross, and it didn't exactly happen in the way he expected, as Kenny Crawford reports.
Jumped on my back, spraying me with water. Yeah, it's brilliant to have him there, just to share those moments with your family and friends and people you're close to. Just makes it that much more special.
It's at the end of the DP World Tour season. As for the bigger rankings picture, Robert McIntyre is still the Scottish trailblazer, highlighted by an 11th placed finish at the Arnold Palmer Invitational event in Florida yesterday. Joining Bob at those kind of tournaments is the chief goal for Hill.
Yeah, 100%. It's probably the main one this season. Obviously, Moran, by the end of the year, get one of those 10 cards.
Have you heard from Bob, or have you sent Bob a message following his good finish last night and your good finish?
But he has a good week every week nowadays.
Yeah, well done, Callum. And just a reminder, the Scottish Cup semi-final draw is on the BBC Scotland channel just after the coverage of Livingston against St Johnstone tonight.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Sheila. Now, a young footballer who almost died in a car accident and the surgeon who helped him back onto his feet again were guests of honour at the final event of the Glasgow Film Festival last night. Ethan Walker and Professor Gordon Mackay cycled from Hampden to Munich for last year's Euros, 7,500 miles. Last night they cycled much shorter distance to the red carpet outside the sellout screening of the film of their story. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean reports.
A 17-year-old from Scotland is seriously injured after being hit by a vehicle in Batavia. The Genesee County
Ethan Walker was on a football scholarship in the US when the accident happened. The injuries he suffered would have floored many people, but not him.
But you're saying he managed to redraw?
Yeah.
Not only did he recover from his injuries, but just 9 months later, he and the surgeon who helped him came up with a new dream. Together with filmmaker Martin Robertson, they set off from Hampden last year, carrying the Scotland team's pennant, a 7,500-mile journey full of ups and downs.
We did have a dream, and on one level, the film is about a dream of going to a major tournament, but on another level, it's about a really intimate conversation between a surgeon and a patient and planning and preparing for the next stage in a young person's life after an accident.
This weekend, they circled back to Glasgow for the world premiere of the film and a special message from one of Ethan's biggest footballing heroes.
How you've got to that position is a miracle. You've done fantastic. Now, on your career, I know you'd love to play the game, but you've got to think about what can you do if you're not going to be a player. And the best route to be involved in football is take your coaching badges.
What happens now? Have you any other thoughts for how you collaborate on anything in the future, the two of you?
Have you had any thoughts? Yes, Ethan, I think hopefully he's going to continue his interest in coaching. He's already doing his badges, so his involvement in sport together will be significant. But I think he's given hope to lots of people, and we would love to continue this. So I think Martin's got some movie epic in mind, so maybe the next World Cup would be a lovely target.
Yeah, just need to make sure I can look both ways.
What a story. Ethan Walker talking to our arts correspondent Pauline McLean. OK, let's take a look at the weather now with Chris. We've had some gorgeous weather recently, especially yesterday.
Yes, it was lovely, but a bit of a false spring, I think.
But.
Lovely picture from one of our weather watchers on the west coast today, but the sunshine hiding the effects of that chill north wind, which will be a feature through this week. Thanks very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yes, we've had variable cloud around today, a few showers, a few bright spells, but if you enjoyed that spring warmth yesterday, today was a bit of a shocker with the drop in temperature. The right-hand column there, the difference compared with what we saw yesterday. Aviemore there, 13 degrees lower than yesterday. And here's why. We've got high pressure situated towards the northwest. That means a northerly wind feeding in cool air, and that will be with us throughout the course of this week. Nothing particularly exceptional for March. It's really what we should be seeing, but certainly compared with the weekend, much cooler. This evening and overnight, those northerly winds feeding in some cloud and a few showers, but many areas dry and clear with a widespread frost. Temperatures in towns and cities down to freezing, if not sub-zero. Less cold around the coast. to tomorrow, and once again it's variable cloud, a few bright spells and a number of showers coming in on those north winds. Most of the shower activity across northern parts of the country, but a few pushing their way southwards as well. Here's a snapshot mid-afternoon tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures around 8 to 10 Celsius, but come further north across parts of Aberdeenshire in towards the Highlands, around 6 or 7 Celsius, and in the wind and catching a shower, feeling colder than that. Those showers, as I say, most frequent across the north and certainly across the Northern Isles as they move inland, turning wintry across the hills and the high ground. It's a similar picture as we head overnight tomorrow night. So this is Wednesday now, and a little trough just beefing up the showers through the Grampians for a time, wintry across the higher ground. Elsewhere, variable clouds, some sunshine and a cool feel. Afternoon values around 6 to 9 Celsius on the thermometer. In the wind, feeling colder than that. Avoid the wind though, in the sunshine shouldn't be too bad. This is the end of the week, that high pressure just nosing its way in, cutting off those north winds, so fewer showers, but still rather cool. This is Thursday, fairly cloudy at times, temperatures around 5 to 9 Celsius. On Friday, more in the way of sunshine, but once again cool. That's the forecast for now.
Back to the warm coats then. Yes. Thank you, Christopher. Now tonight's main news again. The sister of an abuse survivor who's believed to have taken his own life after an inquiry refused to restore his anonymity, so someone needs to be held accountable for his death. Kevin Sutherland went missing in December last year and his body has never been found. Dozens of people have been brought ashore after a cargo ship travelling from Grangemouth collided with an oil tanker in the North Sea. One person is in hospital and there are environmental concerns about jet fuel spilling into the waters off the East Yorkshire coast. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. Until then, from everyone in the team, do enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.